it can be really hard to develop your endurance so that you can run further or for longer. And sometimes you just run out of energy and you can't go any further, and that's not really a very pleasant situation, particularly if you're a long way from home and you're struggling to get back. So what can you do to avoid that problem and get your fitness developing such that you can go further and further, and then you can do longer events, which might be your goals. And even if they aren't your particular goal, being able to run for a bit further is a really useful thing to have, because you can develop what's known as your aerobic threshold, which is if you can develop your aerobic threshold, you don't, without going into too much detail, you don't use so much muscle glycogen, and as a consequence you can go further, or you can go faster without, you can go faster for further. So what can you do about it? Well, pace is the most important thing. So what I've found is it's better to not worry too much about going fast when you're trying to build up your endurance. Work on your pace separately, so you can do hill reps and interval sessions at times when you've got a bit less time, perhaps during the weekdays, and do longer runs at the weekend, or what people do when they start to get into training more than 3 or 4 days a week is they do a hard interval session maybe on a Saturday and then do the longer run on a Sunday. And that way they can develop both their endurance and the speed. But trying to run fast and long can lead to problems. So that's the first thing, is run at a comfortable pace. And a conversational pace is a really useful guide. If you're running with a friend, then see if you can have a chat while you're running together. Nowadays we're blessed with lots of gadgets, so you use what available data you can to control your pace, set some training zones. So I mean, most people, like I've got a running watch here. You can use a running power meter. You can use heart rate. If you're going to use heart rate, it's often better to use a chest strap for heart rate, because they tend to be a bit more accurate than the optical sensors on the watches. But use whatever you've got available and develop things to your needs. So you've got pace from the GPS, you've got your heart rate, and nowadays you can get power meters for running. Garmin do one that's based on the chest strap or a running pod. Stride do one which is based on your shoe, and Polar do one that works with the watch. So they're all options. Don't try to compare one with the other, because unlike power meters on bikes, they're not actually measuring power. They use some algorithm to calculate power. But they're a really good guide for most circumstances. So set some training zones based on your heart rate or your pace or your power, and try and stay in your endurance training zone when you're trying to build your endurance. The fact that they use the same word is no coincidence. Don't go too hard. If you go too hard, you'll start to impair your ability to go further, and as a consequence that'll compromise your session. Set some goals and stay roughly within your ability. So if you can run for 30 minutes now, then start on 30 minutes, do 45 minutes, 60 minutes, and gradually build up. Say do a couple of weeks at one duration. And it's best to work with duration than distance, I find. Do a couple of weeks at one, build up to another couple of weeks, and soon you'll be running for 2 or 3 hours, and that's a really meaningful amount of time. A couple of hours running is a good training session to build on. And you don't really want to be running much more than that every week. If your objective is to do ultra distance events, then it's best to do your 2 or 3 hours at the weekend most weeks, and then go really long occasionally. It's like training's really effective if you do sort of stress your system and then recover. So have some sort of base weekly training volume, and then occasionally go a bit longer, and then that's another way. That's the next step really in building your running endurance. So I hope you like this and you're finding this information useful. If so, please like and subscribe, and have a look at our other videos. We did a really good one, well, Claire, actually my partner in crime, she did a really good one on running drills, which you might find useful. And if you can get a good cadence, that's often a great way to build your endurance and become a bit more efficient. Running drills improve your biomechanics and therefore help you run more efficiently, and that will also help you run further. Moving on from the pace thing, if you find you're struggling, like if you're doing a hilly route and there's a really long hills, then don't be scared to walk. because it's important to stay within this training zone and just let yourself get fitter. You can't force yourself to get fitter. I quite like to think of it as you provide a stimulus and then you let your body get fitter over time. So you're basically providing a stimulus, your body adapts, you provide another stimulus and your body adapts. So if you have to walk to stay within the endurance training zone, then do that. On other occasions, you might want to push things a bit and work a bit harder on hills. In fact, the next video I'm going to do on running is going to be about running up hills. So if you subscribe, you should get information about that. If you're going for, say, more than 90 minutes or 2 hours, then it's really quite important to eat and drink so that your body is fueled properly. If you add some electrolyte mix, which has got some carbohydrates in it as well, that can make a huge difference. And taking in food, as well as liquid, if you're running for more than a couple of hours or 90 minutes, is really a useful way to go, and that will help you run for further as well. And a good rule of thumb is 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrate per hour. So if you're working really hard, then aim to get on the higher level of intake, and if you're not working so hard, then so 30 grams or even a bit less can work most effectively for you. Another factor, like I'd alluded to, progress gradually. Get out for a long run, then you need to have a rest. So say you do your long runs on Sundays, then make Monday a really easy day. Build up a bit of speed work during the week, maybe go for a couple of runs during the week, do some interval work or some hill work, get back to the weekend, do your long run, and have some highs and lows, run some runs faster and some runs slower, and then you gradually get faster and faster in your long runs, and your speed in your training zones will go up, and you'll just progress gradually. But don't force it, because you just make yourself injured or ill, and that won't work. So in summary, pace is the most important thing. Run at a sensible pace, increase things gradually. So each week, run a little bit further, and fuel yourself properly, and let me know how you get on. I hope you liked it, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.